So after posting my initial reaction to the firing of CM Punk, of which I recorded as a separate clip if you're watching on the clips, or you just watched it if you're watching the full show. But now, since then, other podcasters and YouTubers have started to come out, give their thoughts. More news is breaking and leaking as this is a very ongoing story as I record and edit and upload and process my show here. Plus, there's pay-per-views going on everywhere. It's insanity. It's a busy, busy time here. I imagine next week there's going to be a lot more. Everybody's podcast is going to be covering. I look forward to Jim Cornette's take on this. I look forward to Eric Bischoff's take on this and a whole host of others, I'm sure. Bully Ray will be interesting to hear. So I imagine we will get into those next week. But I did want to share with you guys, as we do here, we are a podcast clip and review show. So I did want to get into some of the shit that is being talked about here in regards to, the latest on CM Punk being released from AEW. Again, before we move forward, if you want my initial take on that and the statement as read by, as given by AEW and Tony Khan, go ahead and check that clip out. I'll put it in the end cap to watch. But moving forward, a whole lot of other people had things to say, including Tony Khan himself, which is a good place to start. Tony Khan came out and spoke to the crowd in Chicago, and it didn't go so well for him. He made the announcement publicly, face-to-face, so to speak, and he was met with a resounding boos. Check out this clip.
I came here to talk to you from the bottom of my heart because today I had to do one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and sitting here right now is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I'm sure everybody knows what at this point what I'm going to say, but I think it's important that I come out here and talk to you about it before Collision and All Out this weekend, because I really respect all of you. I'm a wrestling fan like you, and if I were in your shoes, I could totally understand how a lot of you feel one way or the other. But I just want to tell you, I'm out here because I had to do something I did not want to do today. I'm very sorry to fans or anybody who's upset by it. This week we conducted an investigation independent of me. I have a discipline committee in AEW that is independent, and it's comprised of the majority of lawyers. And I also brought in outside legal counsel. I hired independent lawyers to investigate this and make a recommendation. This was different than anything I've ever been involved in sports or wrestling. It was very tough. When I met them, the unanimous recommendation was the action that I took. The action that I took came as a result of this investigation, but I have to say it stems from an incident backstage last weekend at AEW All in London. I've been going to wrestling shows like you for over 30 years, and the first one I ever went to was with my dad, who's here tonight, downstate in Champaign, Illinois. And thank you, Dad, because without him, none of this would be possible. Because
it took a lot of balls for Tony Khan to go out there and do what he did there. This poor guy's a fucking chode, though, isn't he? What a nerd. 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 Nerd in the truest sense. Like, I call myself a nerd, right? Captain America hat, that's nerdy. But, the true, like, the Poindexter nerd, the nerds of the 80s, Revenge of the Nerd type nerds, he's a nerd. Tony Khan is. But it took a lot of balls to go out there and address the crowd. He was you could see he was shaking. He's very awkward. He's a very awkward man. He's out there. You can see his face. He's like, all right, fine. I understand. And then he tries to babyface himself. I grew up here in Illinois. No one cared. They booed him louder. Chicago's a ruthless city. That's another reason why it takes a lot of balls. It's CM Punk's home city. And those guys are not afraid to let you know what they think. This is not a polite fan base. That is a fan base that will boo the owner of the company out of the building. I do think Tony Khan missed a very rare opportunity to sit down, and he could probably still do this on Dynamite or Collision next week. But I think Tony Khan missed a very good opportunity to sit down and say, I didn't screw CM Punk. CM Punk screwed CM Punk. And then just be a fucking heel. Who cares? Doesn't matter at this point, does it? Unbelievable situation. Poor Tony was out there shaking like a leaf. He said his dad was there. Can you imagine being cucked like that in front of your dad? But Tony stood his ground. He said, I did what I had to do for the safety of my crew, the safety of everybody that works at AEW, for the safety of himself, as it was reported that he was lunged at. And if you listen to Dave Meltzer, who reported the lunging incident, and look, Meltzer, by the way, Meltzer and Alvarez are very complicit in all of this here as well. They're basically the media propaganda wing of the Young Bucks, the Elite. But it was Meltzer who had broke the lunged at Tony Khan statement from this mystery third-party bystander that's impartial, right? But Meltzer did say that lunging was putting it lightly, that he was being nice there, and that there's a lot of other stuff that happened that was not talked about. For more details on everything involved here, all the latest as we have it to this point, here are the folks in question, in my opinion, themselves, Mr. Bryan Alvarez and Mr. Dave Meltzer.
I mean, he got fired over what happened Sunday, but the lawyers and everybody else, they talked about a lot more than Sunday. They talked about everything, the stuff that's come out, lots of stuff that hasn't come out. And, should it have been sooner? With the benefit of hindsight, of course, it should have been a year ago. But, hindsight, is always whatever. When he came back, who was to say? You know what I mean? It's like... And I knew, like, when it was one time, I thought that was a pretty bad situation. When it was two, I thought, he's not changing. He didn't learn. When he did the promo, it was kind of like, okay, whatever. The first promo when he came back, when he did the interview, just one thing after another. It wasn't going to work. It didn't work. It was a disaster. Let's be serious. It was a disaster. And, there's so much more to it than has come out, but a lot of the big stuff has. And the biggest thing was what happened on Sunday, and just can't keep having this stuff happen every second week.
So there had been, and I think you put it in the Observer, the stories about when the whole thing went down. People had said that he lunged at Tony.
It was probably stronger than that. I think I was being... And that here's, the funniest thing, and you know this better than anyone, is that throughout this whole ordeal, you and I were far too kind to him. I mean, that's the reality. We were far too kind to him. I always gave him the benefit of the doubt. I always tried to give his side while everyone didn't want to hear, that they just wanted to go, oh, you're after him and everything like that. But, okay, lunging was, again, far too kind. If you saw the actual wording of what was said, lunging was I was toning it down. It was more than lunging.
And there was also, I had heard that when he moved towards Tony, whatever word you want to use, that monitors, there were like monitors that fell on Tony Khan, and it was, and whatever it was, as you noted, there was security camera footage.
It was in a position where there's always cameras running, yes. So that was there. This one had a lot of witnesses. The other one had some witnesses. This one had a lot of witnesses.
Well, the thing with the first one was that there were a small number of people in the room, But as soon as everything happened, then a whole bunch of people came into the room.
Right.
But there weren't like a whole bunch of people in the room when it began. Whereas with this one, there were people all over the place, and so
not just wrestlers. There were production people.
You had witnesses all over the place, and it was filmed. I mean, this was a tough one to claim.
Yeah, and there were unaffiliated people, and there's actually more that may come out this week from other people that were also there. But I'll get into that later this week, probably.
Just the way that he worded that, you can tell his bias is showing. He's not hiding the fact that he is not a CM Punk fan. Neither is Alvarez. I'm sure there's another side of this story, but assuming that this is true, because this is kind of the general consensus now, at least as we stand, CM Punk basically just threw he got in Jungle Boy's face backstage and then fucking went for Tony. Said he quit, somebody said at one point. There are mixed, and this is something I want everybody to take and learn from this as well, is that there are multiple sides. There's multiple stories that have come out now that have given slightly different perspectives of this. So please take everything you hear with a grain of salt. When you hear a Meltzer or an Alvarez like that say, this is what happened backstage. Because who's telling him that? And what's their bias? Right? And certainly we already know Meltzer, so it's not an impartial filter that is coming through. Sean Ross Sapp will play a clip from him here in a minute. Seems to try to at least have a little bit more of a partial filter. I like to go to him for news. But look, with all the facts that we have, and I wasn't fucking there, but with what we know so far, I think you had to fire CM Punk. Otherwise, you're looking at lawsuits from other people in the company, which could still possibly happen. But, at the very least, this is covering Tony's ass in the event of something like that were to happen. Certainly, if this were to keep happening and Punk had too much authority backstage, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But Punk walked around like he owned the goddamn place. He would get in Tony's face. You cannot let your talent walk all over you like that, no matter who the fuck they are. This had to be done to set an example for the entire AEW locker room. Tony's a very nice guy. He can bend very far like a palm tree in a fucking hurricane. He'll bend all the way to the ground, man, before he snaps. But when he snaps, there's got to be a limit. There's got to be a line. You got to know that Tony is willing to do the dirty if it comes down to it. It was that one fucking guy, I still don't remember his name, from the previous clip I talked about, that Tony Khan had fired due to the Me Too allegations a couple years ago. The creepy emo guy. But other than that, Tony does not fire people. And to fire his biggest money-drawing talent, his biggest star by all accounts, his big pay-per-view draw, the guy that got Collision a show on TV with the network by all accounts, because, some fucking market research showed that CM Punk was very popular with the fans, the wrestling fans. They want to see CM Punk. And it's true. It's a fact. Of course, that's debatable with the ratings dips and Collision and all of that, but I think there's a number of other factors to play into there. The fact that there's a pay-per-view every 3 weeks on a Saturday night, or every couple of weeks if you count UFC coming from Endeavor and WWE. There's, it's a shitty time slot on a shitty day of the week where people are going to be out doing other. I mean, it's a dead show for a lot of reasons, and it's not just Punk. Punk is, he's a top merch seller and everything over there. For Tony Khan to put his balls on the table and fire his top money star, somebody that he's clearly a fan of, clearly a mark for, And look, I am too, and I know a lot of other people are. I like CM Punk. I am a fan of CM Punk. I have CM Punk t-shirts. I gotta go out and get the CM FTR shirt. Have they pulled it yet? Hopefully they're not pulling his merch. Hopefully it goes on discount. That's what I want to see. I want a CM FTR shirt, and I haven't bought it yet because all the shirts from AEW or Pro Wrestling Tees end up being $40 fucking by the time you get done with the shipping and the handling and the taxes and all of that. You got to order fucking 12 shirts to make it worth your while, because then shipping's only like $1 a shirt or whatever. But if you want to order like a shirt, 2 shirts, fuck, you're in it. $75-$80. It's bullshit. I digress. I want a CMFTR shirt. Somebody mail me a CMFTR shirt. Fucking inbox me somewhere for my address. That's probably dangerous, huh? Fuck it. We'll kick it. We'll smoke one and we'll chill and we'll fucking, we'll talk it out. We'll hug it out. We'll talk it out. Oh boy. But with CM Punk, so it just kind of put a bow on that part of it. I think it took a lot of guts for Tony Khan to do what he did. I think he's going to get a lot of heat from it. As Eric Bischoff famously said, I actually sampled the clip. I was doing a whole different fucking, that's how fast news changes throughout the week. I was working on a whole different segment. At the time that news was breaking, I was editing up my thumbnails, and I was going to cover the suspension of CM Punk, not the firing, the suspension of him and Jack Perry. As a matter of fact, here's the thumbnail of what that would have looked like. And it would have featured a clip from Eric Bischoff, who is not a huge fan of CM Punk. And he had basically said, like, look, man, just fucking, just take the fucking bullet. As a matter of fact, here's the clip. We'll just play the clip.
You pretty much couldn't commit to it either way because they're still doing their investigation.
Okay, that's another bullshit thing. Okay, I hear this so much about what's under investigation. Tony was standing right there, for crying out loud. It is what it is. What investigation? What are you calling in the CSI team? This is such, and that's a part. Now that kind of flakiness doesn't work for me, brother. This is the time when a leader leads. And if that means for all of you that bought tickets because you thought CM Punk was going to be part of this event, we apologize. Obviously, a situation happened and it had to be handled the correct way. For the sake of the rest of the roster and the business long term, we apologize. Punk's not going to be here this time. Maybe next time. Take the bullet. It's a wound. It's going to bleed. It's going to hurt. You're going to limp a little bit after, but people will respect you for that. The rest of the roster will respect you. The fans will respect you. They may not like it at first. Of course, they're not going to like it, especially if they bought tickets because they wanted to see Punk. But man, you got it. At some point, the answer is yes or no, and it's under investigation. For crying out loud.
Take the bullet. It's going to bleed. It's going to hurt really bad. You're going to get a lot of backlash. People are going to be upset. But think about it. Punk was gone after All Out last year. Had he been fired or never came back, wrestling had moved on. So wrestling will indeed move on. But this is a huge, huge blow. Plus, with the network and Collision, it's been said that the network was consulted about this, and that the third-party group of experts or whatever that Tony Khan had investigating was a group of lawyers basically looking into the legal aspects of that, looking into there's supposedly some tape that leaked or that was available to them from Wembley Stadium's just their security camera setup that kind of showed how everything played out as well. Multiple eyewitnesses. And then they went in and they dug deeper and not just looked into this incident, but they looked into the past incidences and just asked around in the locker room in general, what's it like to work with Punk? How would you feel if Punk was to leave? How would you feel if Punk were to stay? What are your thoughts on Punk? a thorough investigation was done, and Tony made the decision that he did, and I am a Punk fan, and I don't know if we'll ever see Punk in a wrestling ring again. I imagine we would somewhere, somehow, some way. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I do want to address, look, the next thing here is, why was Punk able to throw his weight around so much in the locker room? Why was he able to just throw people out who can and cannot be at the building, including the fucking head of talent relations that would be the guy that could hire and fire and whatever CM Punk? Why was it basically his show? Why was I'm running a business here? What was all of that? We've all speculated. And then in the contract itself, I talked about this in my previous clip when I reviewed the statement that AEW released. Here, I'll put it back up here if I remember to in editing, where it clearly says twice that they made the decision to terminate contracts, his employment and wrestling contract. 2 different contracts, which leads me to believe that I think he had an EVP contract, a quiet EVP contract. For more on the possibility of what might be going on here, we don't know a lot at this time, but Sean Ross Sapp is on the case, and he says he'll get that information soon. I have no doubt that he will, but here's what we know at this time.
So the Collision show opened with a speech from Tony where he basically said he had to make one of the toughest decisions of his career, terminated CM Punk from his contracts, by the way, which is what it said in the press release. I don't know if that was a typo, which I find hard to believe in that typo.
No. I mean, he
apparently had multiple contracts.
I think he had multiple deals. He had a performer's contract and an employee contract, I believe. But I'm sure that will all be clarified in the next 48 hours or so.
A particularly interesting note of this is that the employment agreement. So I had long been asked about CM Punk's deal, his contract, all that. And I said, well, it's tough to say with injury time, whether that could be negotiated. Was he an employee of the company? Now, there were a whole lot of people after he said, I've got a company to run here, that said, well, is he like a VP? Like what's going on here? I'm going to work to find out more. We're going to have more on FightfulSelect.com, of course.
So here's my theory, and I suspect we're going to find out about this week. For all I know, by the time I get this posted and everything, we'll already know. That's how fast everything's moving. But I suspect that CM Punk had an EVP contract. I suspect that, he had the same kind of deal that the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega have, for lack of a better word. I think when Cody Rhodes left the company, that technically left an open spot for an EVP. I also think, remember way back, Cody Rhodes talked about how there's contracts and then there's the Chris Jericho contract. And we had kind of speculated that maybe Cody wasn't given or offered the Chris Jericho contract, which in hindsight might have been a stupid move to not do because Cody's a fucking megastar for WWE right now. But there's that Chris Jericho contract. What is the Chris Jericho contract? Well, we've heard Chris Jericho talk in the past about how Tony offered him an EVP. Chris Jericho's told the story of coming to AEW many, many times through different forums. He's told it on his cruise. He's told it on his podcast. He's told it in interviews with other fucking YouTubers and whatever else, I think Inside the Ropes, whatever, he talked about it. He's said it before that he was offered the EVP contract, the same as the Bucks and everything else. Jericho opted to not have the title. He did not want to be called an EVP. He didn't want any official status, official title ranking within the company. But he has essentially been functioning as an EVP ever since anyway. He does the backstage meetings a lot of times. He is involved in other people's storylines and the booking and the decision making. And he very much always speaks of we, you know, when AEW does something. We did this, we did that, you know. Jericho has the authority to just book people. He was interviewing some bloke from UK, which, by the way, I have no idea if that guy ever ended up making it onto the card or not. He was a guy that was making a little noise. I'm sure I'll be eating my words here as he's a megastar in the making. But anyway, there was a guy that Jericho just offered. You know, he's like, well, so what's next for you? He's like, well, AEW's got the show coming up in London. I'd love to be open up on that show or something. That's my British accent for all you UK fans listening, all you UK viewers out there. That's the best I can do for you. So this Jericho just says, okay, well, it's done. I'll get you a match on that show, no problem. He can just do that. So Jericho, and he always says, I have no interest in ever leaving AEW now. I'll never go back to WWE. I'm sure he will go back and get like a Hall of Fame honor or something like that. And look, he might even be able to do that while he's under contract for AEW. He already went and did the fucking Stone Cold Broken Skull sessions while under contract for AEW. So who's to say, right? Look, there it is. It's looking fuzzy and out of focus, and it was bugging me. You guys probably can't tell because I'm up on a little screen, but I watch my monitor. If you're ever looking at me, I know you're right there, but I'm very anal about monitoring. There's been full shows I've recorded where like the microphone stops working or something, so I'm checking the monitor over on the side. Am I able to show that? Doesn't matter. I'm not even going to bother. So, moving forward here, I think CM Punk has that same deal. I think CM Punk got the Chris Jericho contract. I think he maybe got it in 2. Now, this could be CM Punk doing one of those things that like the top stars did with Turner Network back in the day. They didn't sign their contracts with WCW. They signed their contracts with Ted Turner. They signed their contracts with the Turner Network, and that's why all of them were not involved with the invasion angle, because they didn't come with the purchase of WCW. Their contracts were separate. A lot of people did that with TNA as well. Back in the TNA days, they'd sign their contracts with the Dixie's parents, the Panda Energy Company, and not TNA, the wrestling company. Kind of hedging their bets. Hey, a smaller promotion, or, just whatever the fuck. WCW wasn't even a smaller promotion, but you get the point. You sign your deal with the big corporation, so you know that it's going to be backed. So perhaps it's I don't know if that makes sense, though, because AEW is just AEW. There's no bigger company to sign it to. You know what I mean? So, like, what I'm getting at, was there an employment contract just to have the employee benefits and that sort of thing to kind of be covered as an employee of the company and then also be a talent? Or did we just not announce to not give him a public title because they don't have to, because it's not a publicly traded company? Did we just not publicly say that CM Punk is an EVP, but technically he is, and that's why he's able to say who can and cannot come to the show? That's why he's the guy that Tony Schiavone goes to and says, hey, man, will you tell this Jungle Boy fuck that we can't use real glass? And that's why he's the guy that says that the head of talent relations himself, Christopher Daniels, cannot be in the building, because Punk is an executive vice president of All Elite Wrestling, which would outrank the head of talent relations. Am I lying? Tell me when I'm wrong. Tell me when I'm telling lies. That's what Punk says, right? That's his gimmick. Tell me when I'm telling lies. I think he had 2 contracts, and I think he was released from both of them. I think that's why he had the stroke that he had, the power that he had, and I think that's why he was given so many chances. I think that's why it was a fuzzier legal deal than it was led on to believe, that he wasn't just a wrestling talent. But that's just speculation. But I do suspect we're going to find out soon. Meltzer said that as well. And that he believes that we're going to get the details on the contracts, or, between him and Sean Ross Sapp and all the other dirt sheet guys, we're going to get to the bottom of this. So we've got people on the case. I'm excited to see what the week brings us as far as more details to come. But then we got, I got to check my list just to see what else is. Jesus Christ. I got a clip here from Kevin Nash, and this was kind of prophetic on the level of Kevin Nash. This was recorded. This came out last week. This was before. And if you look at Kevin Nash's YouTube channel now, there's like a preview going where clearly they're going to be discussing the firing of CM Punk. That's what I'm saying. Next week, it's probably going to be, this show is going to be a lot of covering everybody else's take on this as well. And all the other news that comes out about it. This is a good 2-weeker here at the very least. But Kevin Nash, very prophetic here. And this is why a lot of people say he's very intelligent. I know he does a lot of political talk on his pod, and that can get annoying from time to time. I hate when politics get into, I want to listen to wrestling. You know what I mean? And they talk about basically anything but wrestling over there. But they do talk about, they did talk about CM Punk last week on the Click This podcast, Kevin Nash, Sean Oliver. And they talked about the backstage incident at All In with CM Punk and Jungle Boy Jack Perry. And Kevin Nash speculates, is this a mental health issue? And he doesn't say it jokingly. And he also speculates that CM Punk will probably have to be fired for this. Here's the wise man, Kevin Nash, from last week's episode. Not post-firing CM Punk, pre-firing CM Punk. Check out this clip.
Hey, there was guess what? There was a little backstage problem with CM Punk this week. I know.
Again?
You're shocked. That's the face of disbelief.
Jesus. Honest to God, I mean, and this is in all seriousness, what I take from this whole thing is he needs serious help. He needs mental health.
Do you think?
Yes. Yes.
You don't just think this is a behavior disorder?
It's what is mental health?
Yeah, I guess, but an attitude.
No. This is it's when it becomes destructive. When you go after when there's a chance of this costing you millions of dollars, and you just continue to push and push and push.
You a little bit. You had that a little bit. You might walk into a locker room and get a little loud. Maybe turn to someone and go, okay, I had to do that because whatever. Because it becomes an identity a little. It becomes expected a little.
If it's a work, he's not working. Who's he working? Working himself out the fucking door?
You really think they'd let him go?
They have to.
I don't know. If it was any other business, yes. If it was any other business,
but
yes.
He doesn't for what he's doing to that company, and because I tell you right now, man, if I would have broke in and saw some motherfucker doing that shit, and I said, "Oh, he can get away with that," fucking, then I'm going to do it.
It's a really smart take by Kevin Nash, because I think he's right. When he said that clicked. Click this, huh? Get it? No pun intended. But that really resonated with me, right? Because I myself have battled with mental health issues in the past, and it makes me a miserable, grumpy fuck. Confrontational at times. Not to the extent of CM Punk, but fuck. You know what I mean? I get it. I understand that. It's a very real human condition. And maybe CM Punk's suffering something really bad. You know, I'm not even going to sit here and speculate what could be going wrong with the guy, but I think Nash is right. This is a sign of, this is at least a huge possibility that this is a sign of mental health issues. To be this violent, to be this touchy and sensitive, to be this outspoken and self-destructive. You know, there's reports that he said he wanted to quit or was going to quit. Okay, but then what? Do you really think like you're just going to be able to like walk into WWE now? Do you think you're just going to be able to walk into New Japan now? Do you just, I don't care about wrestling, even though it's, you know, been your whole life? Like, it's self-destructive behavior. It's not I could take this or leave it. I got fuck you money. You could certainly look at it that way, and it could be that. But Nash throws a little wrinkle in that, and I think that's something we need to maybe give a little more thought to, or at least needs to be kind of kicked around a little bit, should it not? This kind of behavior is above and beyond, and that's something that Sean Oliver, because he's like, no, you think so? Nash is like, yes. Because Oliver's like, look, man, you were kind of a dick in the locker room sometimes, and you would have outbursts and stuff. But Nash, you know, there was a little insidery there for a little, you know, as they were talking about it. But the gist of it, you know, has been said in other interviews by Nash before. Sometimes Nash would work the locker room. He'd go in and pretend to be pissed off, or he'd put on a show for some of the boys in front of certain people that like to say certain things or what. Nash was a master politician, and certainly Punk is too, I'm sure. Maybe that's it. But, you know, Nash kind of said like a lot of that was measured and on purpose and had a point and was working. Always working, brother. Nash was that kind of guy that would work the boys. Work the guys in the locker room. Work the suits and stuff. But this is different, isn't it? This is more than Punk working the boys. This is more than Punk trying to assert his power as an EVP. This is more than Punk dealing with a bunch of children. They're a bunch of children. Hangman, blah, blah, blah. Sure. I mean, but that's besides the point. Who comes out and says it the way that Punk does? So flagrantly. So defiantly. So stubbornly. So clearly causing conflict. Conflictatory. Is that a word? It is a word, because I'm a podcast journalist with a journalism degree, and I can make up words if I goddamn want to. Because if a guy with a journalism degree can't make up words, who can? Where do they come from? There's new words. There's allowed to be new words. Conflictatory. Look it up. It's besides the point. There could be some very real mental health issues going on with CM Punk. We could see that, you know, there's issues in his marriage going forward. I don't know. He's always like Cool Phil, though, with everybody else, right? We'll cover his Cauliflower Alley Club probably, maybe later. I don't know. It's on the list. We'll see what kind of time we're working with here. But he was very chill there. Seemed to, you know, get along with everybody. Glad-handing people, joking, just being chill Phil. But then we got reports that he's backstage knocking over monitors, lunging at people, and lunge is putting it mildly. Putting it nicely, says Dave Meltzer, who is not biased in any way, shape, or form. And we're going to have the Jim Cornette base that's going to have their take on this, and I can't wait to hear it. Where, you know, he's going to say all these fucking children and see Tony Khan's a stupid ass. And if I was Punk, I would have wanted to ream Tony Khan's neck too. And, you know, Jim Cornette's going to justify it all. But as I talked about on my previous clip with the initial reaction to this is, what are you going to do? Allow everybody else to quit or get fired or be banned from Collision to please see one guy, CM Punk? Whether they're a bunch of children or not, who can't handle, another egotistical guy in the locker room. Set all that aside. It's 5, 6, 7, 10 guys. And even if you get rid of all of those, there's going to be another and another and another and another. Clearly, Punk is confrontational. Clearly, Punk is drama. All of these have a common thread, do they not? When's the last time you heard Jack Perry getting into it with somebody backstage? He's a douchebag. He's got an attitude problem, right? We've heard that. But has he gotten into it nose to nose with anybody backstage before? What about the Young Bucks? Any of them? And sure, Punk, you could say, well, he's the kind of guy that's going to, well, if you're talking shit, I'm going to confront you and punch you in the face. It's not how it works nowadays. It's not an indie locker room. It's not coming up in fucking Ring of Honor and fucking CZW and fucking Ian Rotten's IWA or whatever the fuck it was back in the day. Mid-South. IWA Mid-South. CM Punk can't just go around threatening to beat everybody up, lunging at people, knocking over shit, scaring everybody around him. He's got to handle his business calmly. And CM Punk, or like Kevin Nash said, they have to let go of Punk. He said Vince wouldn't put up with that shit. He was sure as the sun will come up tomorrow that CM Punk would be fired over this. And Sean Oliver pushed back. No, that's their top star. You really think they're going to have the guts to do that? Like Nostradamus, he predicted it. Punk was fired. And probably rightfully so. Which leads us now to wonder what's next. And of course, Ollie over at Wrestletalk. Poor Ollie. He put a video up today showing a flashback of when CM Punk debuted, made his return to AEW. And then the poor guy had to announce the firing. But then he got into speculating, does this mean CM Punk to WWE confirmed? Meltzer says he's free and clear. Check out this clip.
The CM Punk chants. Oh my god. I honestly don't think I've ever seen you cry in my whole life. Honestly, I've never seen you cry.
CM Punk to AEW confirmed.
Yes! Unreal!
I'm Ollie Davis. This is the Wrestletalk News, where CM Punk fired by AEW. Confirmed. WWE's Grayson Waller has also made a potential reference to Punk's firing, tweeting after being attacked by Jey Uso on Payback. Jey Uso attacking me unprovoked on my own show? Fire this man! Using a can of Punk's favourite drink, Pepsi, to soothe his jaw. Because this potentially means as one door closes, another opens. Hit the drum roll! CM Punk to WWE confirmed.
So yes, it is believed that with his termination due to cause, that leaves Punk to be free and clear, that there would be no fucking grace period, and no non-compete clause, no 90-day gimmick buffer zone, none of that. It's rumored that it's already being speculated because Survivor Series happens to be in Chicago this year. Wouldn't that be some shit? CM Punk makes his debut in Chicago. to WWE, his triumphant return. It's plausible. It's plausible. I don't think so, though. Poor Ollie, before we move forward, though. Poor Ollie. Tears of joy, and I feel him because I was at the first dance. I was in the United Center for Punk's return, and that one guy, they showed like one guy on camera crying. That was everybody. A lot. I mean, people all around me were crying. Ollie cried on his video here. Everybody cried. It was joyous for all of us that were diehard CM Punk fans. He was our guy. He was our hero. He was a cult of personality. He was. And he obviously had his haters even back then. But the people that loved him. And they thought that he stood for something, right? They loved him because he stood for... I loved him because he stood for something. He stood against the machine of WWE, all their bullshit, all of it. Everything he did represented that anti-authority, anti-establishment, him making it to WWE and on TV as a skinny, fat, fucking not as buff as anybody else on TV, dirty tattoos everywhere looking, fucking in an era where that was not as common. He kept his name, CM Punk, his gimmick, straight edge, I'm better than you. All of that, and he was a Paul Heyman guy. All of that went in the face of the WWE right from the very beginning. And once he got in, he worked his way up the ladder. He proved everybody wrong. He earned it every step of the way by being the best, by being undeniable. And he put up with all of the bullshit to make it to being a top guy, culminating in that pipe bomb promo and his exit from WWE after beating John Cena at Money in the Bank for the WWE title. That was the peak of CM Punk. That made him the megastar he is today. That made CM Punk. That was the moment that he was etched in stone as an all-timer. Could he go back? I don't think so, and here's why. I think too many people don't want him there. I don't think Triple H is going to want to introduce that into his locker room. I don't think Seth Rollins was already outspoken about it. No, he's a cancer. Stay away. I don't like Phil. He's a cancer. Stay away. I don't even need to do the nasal because I already got the nasal. Stay away. But he's not going to be the only one. I'm sure Roman... If Roman has any stroke there, he's not going to say, yeah, bring him in. Let's work with him. He'll probably fuck up Roman's fucking... He'll do something. You know what I mean? Like, why take the risk? Now, you can fantasy book it. Just like you can fantasy book CM Punk versus Kenny Omega. Or CM FTR versus The Elite. Or CM Punk versus Hangman Page in a steel bull rope cage. You could fantasy book all that. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. You can fantasy book Punk versus Seth Rollins. Absolutely. I've already heard people speculate it. Cody versus Roman. Punk versus Rollins. WrestleMania. Let's go. WrestleMania 40. Sure. On paper, that looks fantastic. But what does that actually mean? That means Rollins would have to work with Punk. After he literally just said a couple months ago, he's a cancer. Stay away. I don't like him. Roman's not going to want him there either. He's buddies with Mox. He's buddies with Rollins. Maybe not so much Mox now, but you know what I mean. Of course, Paul Heyman is a big CM Punk guy. Maybe Paul Heyman could orchestrate. Now that I think about it, maybe if Roman was willing to play a little ball, they could work strictly through Paul Heyman. Triple H could make the deal to hire Punk, bring him in, for Survivor Series and then hand it off to Paul Heyman. Paul, this is your problem. You are 100% responsible for Punk if you want to do this. You can communicate with Punk. You know, the angle, obviously Punk's going to come in and lose to Roman, but let's say you want to bring in Punk to Chicago for a main event title match with Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman, Punk's a Paul Heyman guy. Easy peasy, right? Paul could orchestrate that. I have confidence he could. He could communicate between Punk and Roman or get them in a room together. He could be the back and forth. Triple H wouldn't deal with Punk directly, wouldn't need to. Nobody else would in the office. He would just pass it off to Paul. It's not a bad idea, and do it as a one-off. Like we've heard, like when Brock Lesnar came back, he strictly talked with just Paul. He had his own locker room. He kept to himself. He doesn't hang out with the boys. Probably still doesn't. Comes and goes. Comes, does his things, leaves. Deals with Paul, or does it, works it through Paul. Beautiful. That could work for a one-off. And then, sure, I would love to see Punk and Rollins for WrestleMania. I think those are the two moves. Maybe Punk at the Royal Rumble. That would be apropos because of he left in the Royal Rumble. Maybe not, though. You know, bring him in to work with Roman, lose. Bring him back to work with Rollins, lose. Put him over somebody else in the middle, perhaps, just to make his match with Rollins credible. Who knows? Who knows? I'm just speculating here. Punk is free and clear. He can do whatever the fuck he wants, according to Meltzer. You know, Meltzer went through CM Punk's contract personally with a fine-tooth comb. So we are to just trust the opinion of Dave Meltzer. So take that for what it is. But as we are aware right now, that would be the terms of the release. So Punk theoretically could be in WWE. Is there money to be made there for WWE and CM Punk? Fucking hey, right there is. Oh my God, dirty money. Dirty money. T-shirts, all that shit. But you got to deal with CM Punk. If you can make him Paul Heyman's problem, maybe it could work. And it's a per appearance deal or a 2-3 appearance deal. Very 2-3 match deal with limited appearances in person. You get Punk his own dressing room or trailer outside the building. Seriously. Put him up in a hotel, his transportation to and from the building. His own private locker room. Heyman goes in, meets with him. They do the business. They go out to the ring. Heyman walks him to the gorilla position. Stands back there. Punk goes out first. And then Heyman goes out with Roman. Punk comes back. He leaves. Bye-bye. Doesn't even need to talk to anybody. Gets the paycheck in the mail, so to speak. I'm sure it's an electronic transfer deposit at this point, right? You get the point. I'm going to wrap it up here. I think we've gone goddamn really long on this. But hey, man, it's a big, big story. I knew we would, and that's why I said, for some of these other topics that I may or may not cover on the show, that we might just not get to them because this is a big, big story that requires a lot of coverage. But I feel like we've covered it from every angle. We've covered the what happened, the statement. We've covered, was it a mental health issue? We covered Tony Khan getting booed out of the building. We covered, could he go to WWE? Does he have multiple contracts? All the latest details of what actually happened backstage. We got it all. So at this point, that's where everything stands. But I do imagine by next week, there's going to be a lot more that has come out about this. And a lot of other people just giving their take, throwing in their 2 cents. And I'm here for it because that's what I do here as a podcast journalist, It's my job to cover all that shit. So I think I've covered it appropriately for this week, and I'll be back with that topic next week, or just a follow-up on the Punk drama, I am sure. Until then, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on this whole CM Punk situation. Who are you looking forward to hearing talking about it most? Cornette, Bischoff? Give me your pick, man. Whose side are you on? Is Punk right for just wanting to bitch slap all these little punk-ass kids? Or is Punk he just does not belong in All Elite Wrestling? I think that's where I stand on it. I was a diehard CM Punk fan who am now a questioning CM Punk fan. And I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in him. I'm disappointed in the whole situation, the whole run. There was some magic that was made with MJF and so on. I think that'll probably go down as his most memorable, but just his return, I think giving us that night in the United Center, the first dance, might have been all the closure that we needed, because now we got this encore of Punk that has been disastrous. It's my 2 cents. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Peace, love, and pizza. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next.
Let me tell you something, brother. You can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on this channel, dude. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to take your vitamins and say your prayers, brother.